We're doing great? Okay, so just a mini debrief. The mini debrief is that last time we talked about Herbert Hoover and what he attempted to do with the Great Depression. And then we met FDR, and we talked about his reforms, mainly the things that he did with the banks. Obviously, he did way more than that, and that was the point of the alphabet soup assignment, is for you to see all the different things that he tried. And so remember last time I said that one of his themes was, just try something? Does it look like there was like an overall arching, we know exactly what we are doing plan going on? Or was it more, oh, let's try that, oh, that's good, okay? So it was confusing, it was trying to do everything, okay? And obviously, was it trying to do a lot of different things? Yeah, because this was just a sample. It's not even all of them. Okay, if that makes sense. So, and when you were doing it, did you get a feeling for? I kind of arranged them this way, that some of the things were about relief, providing you're feeling bad to help you, make you feel better. Recovery, okay, now you're feeling better. How can we actually get you well? Okay, and then finally, reform. How can we make this never happen again, at least until 2007? Okay, so did that kind of make sense? All right. With all that, FDR was successful in one way. Under Hoover, the economy was going down. What FDR manages to do is, you know that rule, when you're in a hole, what are you supposed to do?
Dig yourself out.
Stop digging. Okay? When you're in a hole, stop digging. And so what did FDR manage to do? He managed to stop the decline. He also gets the economy turned around enough that jobs start coming back. Okay? We are no longer 1 in 4 people unemployed. However, the unemployment rate is still atrocious. So it depends on what you're grading someone on, okay? If you're grading for improvement, whoa, huge improvement. The unemployment rate went from about 25% down to about 15%. Okay? Is that an amazing improvement? It is an amazing improvement. But 15 is god awful. At our worst in the Great Recession, we did not reach 15. Okay, does that make sense? So as bad as it ever was during the recession of 2007, it never reached 15%, which is what FDR was able to get it down to. So is everybody with me so far? So now, you've been in office a couple of years, and you're not done, right? Naturally, if you have not fixed things, right, then people are going to start saying what? You're doing it wrong. And so what will happen next is the New Deal will start coming under fire because it hasn't quite fixed things. It hasn't quite made everything all better. Now, if you're to look at the two different groups, the two different attackers, what you're basically going to find is that you're going to find one group of attackers that basically says, you're crazy, you're doing it all wrong, I don't know why you're doing all of these programs, spending all this money, you got to stop, you got to slow down, you're going nuts here. Okay? So that's going to be one set of attackers. The other set of attacker is going to be going, well, what'd you slow down for? What? You're not doing enough. There's so much more to be done. You can do more, do more. What's wrong with you? Do more. Okay. And so you can imagine, you're the FDR, you're FDR's administration. On one hand, people are saying, stop, you're crazy. And the other side saying, you're not doing enough. Please help more. Right? So, on the you're doing too much side, interestingly enough, you can find pretty much the people that FDR knocked down to become president of the United States. I was defeated by FDR club. The first member of the I was defeated by FDR club was Al Smith. Al Smith had actually been FDR's mentor. He had been the guy who had kind of brought him into New York politics. He had been governor of New York before FDR was governor of New York. But in 1932, Al Smith wanted another shot at the presidency. Okay? In the Democratic Party, they're really good at renominating the same person over and over again to lose, right? And so Al Smith is going, hey, I want to do it again. But his former protege, FDR, blocks him and takes the nomination. Al Smith basically is going to show that he would not have done it the way that FDR did it. Al Smith is going to show that he was much more of what you would call a conservative Democrat. A Democrat who was much more into laissez-faire, more in the vein of Grover Cleveland. And so basically what Al Smith is going to do is he is going to help create what was known as the Liberty League. And what the Liberty League is basically going to say is that the programs that FDR are doing are socialists. Okay? And look at the name, Liberty League. This is going to be a common thread. That when you give government this much power, okay, to create these types of programs, you are limiting our liberty, our freedom. All right, you with me so far? The second in the I was beaten by FDR club, of course, is former President Herbert Clark Hoover. Hoover is going to call for what he called a holy crusade for liberty. Notice that liberty word again. And what Hoover was afraid of was that FDR was spending too much. That he is doing what you call deficit spending. Does anyone know what that means? To do deficit spending? What is deficit spending? What is deficit?
Is that when you spend so much of the government's money that you're in debt, but you support consumers so much so they boost the economy?
Okay, so you're actually not going into a definition of what deficit spending could do.
Oh.
But the first part of what you said is absolutely correct. Is that you're spending money that you do not have. Okay, so your government budget, let's say, was $100 and you spend $250. You are spending more money than you're taking in. And what Herbert Hoover says is it's wrong to have deficit spending, because what it does is it basically limits or imprisons the future. Okay? You're basically saying, I got a problem. And you're taking that problem and you're going, kick! And you're saying, hey kids, you take care of it. Thanks. Okay? And what you're doing is you're saying to that future generation that I'm basically locking you up. I'm limiting your freedom because I'm paying for my problems. And so he called it a holy crusade for liberty. He said, free the future! Free them! Don't imprison them in our debt. Does that make sense? He also had choice words for the New Deal. He called it Bryanism under new words and methods. So who's he digging up? He's digging up poor dead William Jennings Bryan, and he's going whap, whap, whap. Look at what they're doing. They're doing Bryanism. Okay, because this worked in the past. We used to beat up on Bryan and win. So, good times. So the New Deal is Bryanism, and nobody likes Bryanism. So let's stop this thing. All right, does that make sense? In the same vein as these politicians was an organization of manufacturers that were known as the National Association of Manufacturers, and they called themselves NAM. Now, NAM gives us a different connotation later. We're going to talk about a different NAM. But what this group basically said is that we need to return to what would be called unfettered capitalism. What unfettered? What does it mean to unfetter something? Okay, not involved. Okay, so if I'm tying you up, I'm putting a fetter on it. If I am unfettering you, I am freeing you, and basically this is going back to what idea? What's unfettered capitalism? What would be another way of saying it? Laissez-faire. So government, get out. Government, get out. Government, get out. If you're looking for the ultimate answer to the ultimate question of how to fix the economy, it's bring back laissez-faire. That'll do. Now, initially, this does not go over very well. But their views will basically kind of become part of the ideals of future politicians. Okay, people that are kind of growing up during this time period, they're going to be attracted to the ideas of the National Association for Manufacturers. Most notably was a guy by the name of Barry Goldwater. Okay? And Barry Goldwater will basically look at everything that happens in the New Deal and everything that happens even after the New Deal as this big growth of government, and that's got to stop. Barry Goldwater will become the Republican candidate for the presidency in 1964. He will get walloped, okay? But there was this guy who was attracted to his ideas, okay? A guy by the name of Ronald Wilson Reagan. Okay? At that time, he was an actor for a program called Death Valley Days. And he went on a speaking tour on behalf of Barry Goldwater. And he will later use these same ideas to win the presidency in 1980. In the vein of government doing too much, also on that team was the United States Supreme Court. Most of the court had been appointed in the last 12 or so years, meaning that most of the people on the United States Supreme Court had been appointed by Harding, Coolidge, or Hoover. This made it so that the court had a conservative balance. Okay, it was a more conservative court. this court is going to declare the NRA to be unconstitutional. Okay, so that big reform program that the Democrats were trying to use to fix the American economy is going to be declared unconstitutional. Yeah.
Is Taft dead yet?
Taft, I'm not sure if it's right around this time that we get the shift. So he had been Chief Justice through the 1920s. But I usually think of him as being more about those court cases like Adkins versus Children's Hospital, as opposed to this one. Anyway, what this court is going to argue is that what the NRA did is it stepped beyond the powers of the federal government. That the New Deal was doing things that went beyond what you were allowed to do. You see, under the Constitution, it says that government has the right to regulate what is known as interstate commerce. So if you are doing something that crosses state lines, then the federal government has the right to regulate you. But the NRA was placing regulations on companies that were completely within state boundaries. In this case, it was a poultry farm. Okay? And what this poultry farm will do is they're going to say, hey, we're within our state. Y'all shouldn't be messing with us. It shouldn't be a federal matter. And so the court agreed and said that anything that was a program of the federal government that was doing something directly within a state, or intrastate as opposed to interstate, is unconstitutional. The court would then go on to rule several other laws, such as the Agricultural Adjustment Act, also to be unconstitutional. So, again, if you're looking at one set of critics to the New Deal, you're doing too much. You're doing things beyond your power. You got to stop. Okay? The other team is going to be the group that says you are not doing enough. You need to do more. One of the people on this side was a Roman Catholic priest that had a radio show. His name was Father Charles Coughlin. They called him the Microphone Messiah. What he says is government needs to do more. Okay? He formed an organization known as the National Union for Social Justice. And he's going to say that, hey, FDR's doing an okay thing. He's going after the banks. He's trying to regulate them. But you know what? That's not enough. If he really wants to take control of the banks in America, if he really wants to keep them in line, he needs to nationalize them. Okay? He needs to control all things money. All things money must be under the control of the United States government. Well, Coughlin will then start to look out into the world. And he's going to start to notice that some other countries had managed to get out of their depressions, had managed to fix their economies. And on his radio show, he's going to start saying, you know what? We need to do what those other countries are doing. Germany is out of its depression. We need to do it like the Germans. Okay? And soon, his program starts to sound like, okay, an organ of the Nazi Party. His program becomes increasingly anti-Semitic. and becomes increasingly fascist. We should do more. We should be fascist. A second critic was right here in California, okay? His name was Dr. Francis Townsend. And Townsend, from Long Beach, okay? What he is going to say is that there's a problem in American society. You see, our wages are so low that people cannot set aside any money for savings. They live from paycheck to paycheck. And so what ends up happening is if you can never, ever, ever, ever save, and you're always, 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 always living from paycheck to paycheck, that means, you know what? You are working until you die. You know, we no longer have a society where family members would take care of older family members. It's particularly true in the Depression when nobody has anything, right? And so what's ending up happening is you've got these 80, 70-year-old people that are having to continue to go to work. Well, what we need to do is we need to build a safety net for those people. What we need to do is basically guarantee for anybody over the age of 60 that they be given a pension of $200 a month. Now, this comes from the camp, FDR, you're not doing enough. And how is FDR going to respond to some of the people that say you're not doing enough? That's a good idea. And so this attack will be the inspiration for that one of those alphabet soup programs that you learned about, Social Security. Okay? This will be the inspiration for Social Security. Yes, we may.
Do you automatically get $200 a month if you're over 60?
It would, at that time, yes. It's right now. Basically, what it is currently you pay into Social Security your entire lifetime, and once you reach retirement age, it's older than that now. Then you start with being able to withdraw a percentage based on how many work hours you had done, how many years you did it, how much you paid in.
And what you did.
Okay. It's not so much what you did. It's more based on the amount you put in, okay, as opposed to the type of job that you have. Interestingly enough, in the state of California, they put teachers on a different thing. So I pay into the state teacher's retirement. I do not pay into Social Security.
But
So.
what if you're over the age of 60 and you decide you still want to work?
You can.
You could be getting Social Security money and working.
It's yeah. I believe you can.
Yeah.
I believe you can. So,
It's like
again, it's not like automatically. There are rules and regulations, and you kind of have to play it in a certain way.
So stock is just smart thing.
Right.
It's different.
What do you mean it's different?
Like she's retiring in a couple of years,
Mhm.
and she says that she could work over
Mhm.
the retirement age and get more money
Mhm.
out of the pension plan,
Right.
but if she wouldn't get it at the same time that she's working.
Right. So that's what I mean is that you could keep working, but if you can retire and then start withdrawing, and then all of a sudden that sets the amount you get forever. Or you can keep on working and not withdraw, and therefore keep building up, and the older you are when you retire, the more you get afterwards. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? Okay.
Does
So-
does ROTC work like consider is ROTC work considered work for Social Security?
Military
Yes.
pensions are separate.
Okay.
Okay, I believe you get the hour. Military pensions are one of the few that allows you to double dip. You get both the hours and you get the separate pension too. Teaching hours are not. Teaching hours you don't count towards Social Security. So even if I had worked, and I did work for years and paid into Social Security, that money stopped at whatever that number of hours is. So I don't get I can't get a Social Security pension and my S3S pension both.
You can't just like tell them I worked for an
They know. It's all being recorded. Every move. Okay, anyway, gotta move on. The last of these kind of you're not doing enough people fits into a particular category. It's a group of politicians that basically capitalize on popular discontent. Okay? In other words, y'all are unhappy because you don't have jobs, so what am I going to tell you is, hey, you got a problem? I can fix it for you. Okay, so one of these guys, he was governor of Louisiana, his name was Huey Long, and basically what he would do is he would make pie-in-the-sky promises, okay? He said he would make every man a king. He would make it so that everybody in America would be able to afford a radio, a car, and a house, okay? Now, how would you pay for this to make it so that everybody would be able to have a car, a radio, and a house? Well, of course, share the wealth, people! Share the wealth. You know, there are some people that make all kinds of money, that way too much, way more money than they need. And then there are the other people that don't make enough. Well, what do? You make sure that everybody has just enough. Okay? Now, how are we going to do this? Well, we are going to put a 100% tax on every dime, every dollar that you earn over $1 million. So, yeah, come on, you cannot live off $1 million. What is wrong with you? So, what we'll do, we'll let you get that $1 million, but then, after $1 million, everything goes into sharing the wealth. Now, let's say that you die and you have property, you have a whole bunch of property, and all that property will go on to your kin. Well, no. We are going to stop that at $5 million, okay? Anything, come on, you don't need to inherit anything more than $5 million, you're kidding me. So, $5 million, then done, and where does the rest of the money go? It goes to the government, and then we share the wealth, okay? So that everybody can have a house, an automobile, and a radio. Okay? FDR kind of feared, okay, this type of populist politics. Okay? He kind of believed that what it would do is that the ideas of people like Townsend, the ideas of people like Coughlin, the ideas of people like Long, that what they could possibly do is form a third party. And what would that do? If there were a party to the left of the Democratic Party, okay, what would happen to the Democrats' ability to win? And then who wins? Republicans. Okay? So basically, FDR feared an insurgency from the left. Now, part of that fear will go away, because as Huey Long kind of rose up through Louisiana politics, if he's got kind of one side that he wants everybody voting for him, there's still going to be one people that's going to lose. And the people that lose in that equation thing, well, they're not going to like Huey Long very much. And so, they will assassinate him. Okay. So basically what these critics kind of set up FDR to do is, of course, to respond. And if you look at FDR's administration, you can kind of look at when he first begins, we call that the New Deal. It was, let's fix the economy New Deal, let's get it better New Deal. But then, his policies kind of change, or these programs kind of change. And they become less about fixing the economy for our great economic downturn, and more about creating a social safety net. when he shifts to this new set of ideas, we call it the second New Deal. First New Deal, fix the economy. Second New Deal, reform, okay, create a social safety net. In doing so, he is going to redefine what it means to be a liberal in America. He's going to change, in effect, the definition. So some of you have actually asked me when we were studying early politics, and you go, well, wait a minute, how come these people are called the liberals? They don't sound so much like the liberals. They almost sound like today's conservatives. Well, guess what? This is why. Okay? Basically, it's going to be, during this era, that FDR kind of redefines what it meant to be a liberal. During this time, okay, we are going to see, okay, what we call today the social safety net be created. What FDR is going to do is he's going to react to those "you're not doing enough" critics by pivoting to the left. And what he's going to do is he's going to look at some of the things that these people propose, like Townsend and his pension for people that retire. And he's going to say, okay, that sounds good. That sounds like Social Security. We're going to do that. And so he's going to kind of pick and choose between these ideas of the people that are saying he's not doing enough. And he's going to adopt some of them. And by adopting some of them, what does he do to the possible problem of an insurgency from the left? He pretty much eliminates it. So you remember all, it's kind of like what Jefferson did, okay? When Jefferson had all the things that the Federalist Party was doing, what he did is he just basically did all the things the Federalists were doing, and therefore, well, why do we even have a Federalist? You don't need to exist. So basically, he's taking the ideas of these insurgents, co-opting them to make it so that they don't need to exist. Again, when he does this, we call it the Second New Deal, which focused on the creation of a social safety net and social justice. Now, the social justice part is mainly about workers. During the 1920s, what voice did American workers have? Nada or less than nada. What FDR will guarantee, first with the NRA, and then secondly with the Wagner Act, is that workers have the right to organize. Workers have the right to a voice. So the best examples you can have as far as what this welfare state or the safety net change would be A, the Wagner Act, which is giving workers the right to organize, and B, something like Social Security, which gives people who are in retirement a pension. It also gave single women that were with children payouts. It was called to aid to families with dependent children, which existed really until the Clinton administration. All right, so can everybody kind of see this shift? Can everyone kind of see what happened here with FDR? All right, so what I'd like you to do right now is very, very quickly kind of summarize the critiques of the New Deal, and then B, how FDR responds to them. All right, so anyone feel that they can kind of summarize this for me? What were the critiques, and kind of how does FDR respond? Thanks.
So the first one was that FDR was not doing enough, like Hampton, Coughlin, and Long, so
Mhm.
like they thought that he should do more. And the second critique was that he's doing too much and he should stop. And basically his response was to adopt many parts of their proposals in the
Anyone want to add? Anyone want to add to that, or you feel that was a pretty good snappable response? All right, Nick says snappable. Okay, so what we are seeing here is, in effect, almost the death of what we would call classic liberalism. That in classic liberalism, the idea of individual freedom resulted from free markets and weak government. Now remember, why would this be liberalism? Because who had all the power before these people would try and limit that power? Who had the power that they wanted to weaken? These classic liberals. Who?
Corporation.
Okay, no, before the corporation. So this would have been way back. Classic liberals would have been saying that back when government was way in the hands of like the king, and who were the rising people saying, no, king shouldn't have that much power, would have been business. Okay, so business is saying, hey, no, you gotta lay off government, so we can have freedom to operate. And so that's why it was liberal, because you didn't want the king anymore. King had too much power. What New Deal liberalism is saying is that government has changed. And then rather than being like in the hands of the king that was like authoritarian, is that we now ended up with so much kind of power and control falling into the hands of corporations and whatnot, that the losers are the individuals, the people, particularly the poorest people in society. And so what we need to do is reset and give more power back to government. And what would government do is that government's job would be to preserve individual liberty by helping the needy and guaranteeing a basic level of welfare. Okay? That when you're old, you don't just keep working until you die. That somebody steps in and says, hey, okay, no, it's good. You did a good job. Okay, you can stop now. Okay? And you can see how all of a sudden you're once again calling for more government power. But why? To help people. To promote the general welfare. Well, hopefully you see what just happened here. If you change the definition of liberalism, you're also changing something else. Conservatism. So what basically happens is those in favor of laissez-faire, ding, now become known as the conservatives. Do you see what happened there? And so this is that shift that a lot of you had this gut feeling. Okay, there was something weird between what we were calling liberalism earlier and what is liberalism now. And that is because there is a change. Yes?
So classic liberals were to be conservative?
In many ways, yes. In many ways, yes. Weak government, laissez-faire. Sounds like a conservative today to me.
So would the old conservatism be classic?
Well, there would have been nothing like the New Deal liberals before, because government, when it was powerful, was a different purpose. It wasn't for promoting the general welfare.
So there wasn't any group that wanted a stronger government?
There were people that, the old conservatives wanted a stronger government, but it wasn't a stronger government to promote the general welfare.
Okay.
It was a stronger government so that the king can have his authoritarian rule. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Supposedly to protect you, but it wasn't to meet your basic needs. It was to make it so that Vikings didn't kill you. Okay. So that was the general welfare of the government before. I keep the Vikings from killing you, and therefore you do everything I say. Okay. We see this shift manifest itself in the election of 1976. 1976? Oh my God. 1936. In the election of 1936, the basic theme is need versus greed. Okay? Are you in favor of helping those in need? Taking care of people, help them make their basic needs? Are you on the side of greed? These people who just want to make money. In this election, the Republicans are going to run a guy by the name of Alf. Alf Landon, that is. Now, Alf Landon, basically what the approach of the Republicans is going to be attack the New Deal. Say that the New Deal is radical. Say that the New Deal is experimental. Say that the New Deal is confusing. Well, guess what? Every single one of these attacks is spot on. It was radical. It was way different than anything that ever happened before. It's experimental. Did it really look like FDR had a plan, or is he going, whoa, let's see? And was it confusing? Well, if we're doing, oh, let's see, of course it's confusing. So these attacks are pretty spot on. The problem with the attacks is that if you're attacking, what are you going to do instead? So you don't like this, what are you going to do? We still got a problem. The other problem that the Republicans had in 1936 is that their candidate, Alf Landon,
had the worst radio voice that you ever did hear, and it was absolutely annoying to anyone who heard his voice on the radio that this guy could become president of the United States.
Okay. And so, FDR wins in a blanking landslide. Okay? Alf Landon, who had been was the governor of Kansas, he only wins 2 states, neither of which was Kansas. Okay? He wins Vermont and Maine, like barely a state, Maine. The electoral count was 523 to 8. Okay? Not only does FDR win by this landslide, but the Democrats will take 2/3 majorities in both the House and the Senate. Okay? With FDR's win, Al Smith will make a joke. Okay, this joke is to help you kind of clarify for you who's Al Smith. Okay, Al Smith's going to say, "Well, no one shoots Santa Claus." What's he trying to say? No one shoots Santa Claus. What's he trying to say? What's he trying to say?
FDR is like giving so much support, like financially, kind of like Santa Claus gives out presents.
Yeah, he's giving out presents. And like, oh, come on, you kidding me? He's not a president, he's Santa. Okay. The other thing we see in 1936 is the creation of what we call the New Deal coalition. Okay? This is going to be a winning coalition. It's going to basically be the coalition that will win for the Democrats 5 elections in a row. okay, they'll lose 2 and then they'll win 2 more. Okay, so it's basically a coalition that wins 7 out of 9 elections. 7 out of 9 elections. What the coalition is kind of awkward because it was the South. Why was the South in the coalition? Were they this new liberal? No, but they still thought that Abraham Lincoln was wandering around somewhere, so they were not going to vote Republican. The second part of the coalition, and this is really where the awkwardness comes in, were Northern African Americans. So you have this weird thing of Southern KKK Democrats and Northern African Americans in the same party. The other group, the cities. Immigrants, labor unions, and the poor. And if you look at that coalition, you could actually see a huge chunk of still the Democratic Party of today. It's not quite the same coalition. It's not the New Deal coalition exactly, but much of what is the Democratic Party of today is still groups in this coalition.
Prosperity already tests the persistence of our progressive purpose. So let us ask again, have we reached the goal of our vision of that 4th day of March 1933? Have we found our happy valley?
And the answer was no. 1936 had FDR fixed everything the way that he had hoped to. And the answer was no. That's what a spanking looks like. But this election is going to make FDR do something he probably shouldn't have done. Okay? You see, the Democrats had won 1932. Okay? In the midterms, the Democrats picked up seats in both the House and the Senate, and now in 36, the Democrats land frickin' side. Okay? The FDR thinks they like me. They really like me. But that darn Supreme Court doesn't like me. And it's not fair. I mean, I win 3 elections in a row, right? You know, all my stuff. This is what things should ought to be. And what does that court go off and do? Overturns my stuff. So Roosevelt makes a proposal. Now remember, he's got 2/3 majorities in both houses of Congress. He can get pretty much anything he wants, so long as what he wants is not this. What he asks for is the ability to change the court. Okay? That we add justices to the United States Supreme Court, that he basically be allowed to appoint an additional justice for every justice over the age of 70, maxing out at 6 more. They're old, they need help, right? But what does this sound like? Because basically this is what it will do. Okay, so everybody imagine, FDR lost a case 5-4. All right? And then let's say that FDR appoints 5 more justices. What's the new score? Assuming that all those justices vote the way he wants them to. 9-5. He just changed the scorecard. This proposal becomes FDR's first major defeat. Remember, what's happening in other countries at this time?
Fascism.
Yeah. And what is this looking like?
Dictatorship.
Yeah. do this one, sorry, no. Turned out, however, that it didn't really matter. FDR should not have done this because he just was waiting, he just started way too soon. You see, these people were old, and what's going to happen is these people will do what old people do. They die and they retire. Okay? I mean, it's sad, but this is true. I mean, had he waited just a little bit longer, okay? Or, it was an or. Okay? Anyway, okay. Yeah, or worse, it's spelled. Anyway, if he had just waited, what FDR would have seen was a natural shifting in the court, as he was now able to appoint new justices because people retired or died. Okay? Eventually, by the way, Roosevelt will appoint 9 new justices to the United States Supreme Court. He holds the second place. Okay, G. Wash appointed the most at 10. We call this the court packing scheme. Okay, so if you ever hear just the phrase court packing, this is what they're talking about. The other major thing that FDR does in his second term is he shifts to kind of a new form of economics. And here's why. You see, he didn't end the Depression in his first term. Now, he did do something. He was able to cut unemployment from 25 to 15%. Awesome, yes, but 15% is still abysmal. Okay? It is still god-awful. However, remember how I told you that FDR listened to his critics on the left and he started to embrace new programs on the left? He also listened to his critics on the right. And one of the things the critics on the right were saying is that you're spending too much. So what does FDR start to do in 1936? He starts to spend less. So everybody just imagine you're cruising down the highway at 70 miles per hour and you just ease up on the accelerator a little bit to slow down. Okay. And so, everybody feeling it? Slowing down? Got it? Slowing? Slowing? Oops. It causes a recession. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, in the middle of the terrible Great Depression, we had a recession. Yes, you can do that. Okay, everybody imagine, take a line. Okay, and the line comes slamming down to the floor. Okay, that's rock bottom. Now imagine the line bouncing back up, okay, gets to, let's say, about Cleo's head level, okay? And now it starts to go back down again. It doesn't reach the floor, but it starts to go down again. So just go, zoop, zoop, zoop. A recession in a depression. So what FDR decides to do is embrace an idea known as Keynesian, and yes, that is the correct pronunciation. It is not Keynesian. The guy's name that it's named after is Lord Maynard Keynes, thus Keynesian economics. This is what Morel was telling us about earlier. Okay? Is that you purposely run a deficit during an economic downturn. Here's the idea. In an economic downturn, a whole bunch of money just left the economy, right? So what does the government do? It replaces that money via government spending. It stimulates the economy versus via government spending. It makes it so that there's money out there. But, and this is actually part of the key. You're spending money you don't have. You are borrowing from the future, right? So, what are you spending it on? Roads, bridges, dams, infrastructure. So even though you're borrowing from the future, what are you also giving to the future? Stuff, roads, bridges. Y'all go drive up PCH. You can't do it directly anymore because of like landslides. But if you could, drive straight up PCH all the way to Monterey. As you're driving up to Monterey, you're gonna cross a whole bunch of these giant, cool, awesome bridges. And as you approach each of these cool, awesome bridges, you will see a date on them as to when they were built. And they will all be in the 1930s. So those roads you're driving on were built then. So. Somebody might have thought of like the last economic downturn to start doing building thing again thing. They did. But when you do this spending, it does cause what you call a debt. And in the era we call the New Deal, which runs from 1933 to basically the beginning of World War II, 1939, the United States doubles its debt. Yeah.
Does this depression affect us in World War II?
Does it affect us in World War II? Let's just say that World War II affects the Depression. Okay. Yeah.
So, is this like strategy of keynesian economics meant to be always used or only during a recession?
The true time for deficit spending would be during an economic downturn.
But the guy who came up with it, do you think that it should always?
He never really thought balanced budgets had to happen, but when we key was during economic downturns. So, bringing it on home. The impact of the New Deal on American society is basically it is going to create our social welfare liberalism. It shifts the relationship between people of the United States and its government. It used to be a distant government. Now it's a government that is in our lives. Look at our paychecks. It is there. It also is a government that is going to provide assistance to the unemployed, the elderly, workers, and the poor. Next time, World War II. There is, however, an entrance ticket. Okay, and what the entrance ticket is if you saw, it's on Schoology. Okay, it also was on the agenda if you wrote it down at the beginning of class today. But what I want you to do is evaluate the New Deal and take into account relief, recovery, and reform and Keynesian economics. Okay? See you.